I canceled my best friend's flight home from Bali while she was still screaming at me in the hotel lobby. Not metaphorically, not in my head. I mean, I stood there, still wearing the blue dress she told me to buy, while she pointed in my face and told security that I was obsessed, jealous, and ruining the most important day of her life. And I opened my phone, called the airline, and voided the business class ticket I had paid for. The same ticket she begged me to put on my credit card because her daily transfer limit was acting weird. 5 minutes earlier, she told me I was too embarrassing to be in her wedding photos. 10 minutes after that, she was barefoot in a marble hotel lobby in Bali, sobbing mascara down her face, asking me what I had done. And for the first time in 12 years, I looked at Madison Blake, my best friend since freshman year, and said exactly what I should have said the first time she used me like a wallet in a sundress. You wanted me in the back of the pictures, Madison, so now I'm in the background of your travel plans. 2. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 32 years old. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and until that trip, I was the kind of woman who confused loyalty with love, the kind who says yes too fast, the kind who spots red flags and calls them stress, the kind who hears, "I need you," and treats it like a sacred oath. And Madison knew that better than anyone. If you had asked me a year before that wedding who my person was, I would have said Madison without even blinking. We met at 19 in a freshman communications class at the University of Georgia. She was the girl everybody noticed first. Honey blonde hair, perfect posture, that bright, effortless laugh that made professors smile at her even when she showed up late. I was quieter, more practical. I color-coded my notes, worked part-time at a bookstore, and always had extra pens in my bag. Madison borrowed one from me on the second day of class and never really gave me my piece back after that. We became friends fast, best friends even faster. She was fun, magnetic, fearless. I was stable, dependable, organized. It felt balanced back then, like we gave each other what the other didn't have. She made me feel bolder. I made her life run on time. At 19, that kind of dynamic feels romantic in a friendship. You call it chemistry. You call it sisterhood. At 32, if you're honest, sometimes you call it unpaid labor. But I wasn't honest then, and honestly, I wasn't honest for a long time. Because Madison had this way of turning every selfish thing into something that sounded intimate. If she forgot my birthday, she'd say she'd been so overwhelmed, and I, of all people, understood her heart. If she needed a ride to the airport at 4 in the morning, it was because I was the only one she could trust. If she cried about a breakup and called me 3 nights in a row until 2 a.m., it was because we had that once-in-a-lifetime bond. And I believed her. I don't think people talk enough about how flattering it feels to be needed, especially if you're the dependable one, especially if you grew up being praised for being mature, helpful, selfless. You start to build your identity around being the one who shows up, the one who fixes it, the one who absorbs a little more, gives a little more, stretches a little further. And then, one day, you wake up and realize the people around you don't love you because you're you. They love how easy you make their lives. That realization didn't hit me all at once. It came in installments, like interest on debt. At first, it was small things. Madison would forget her wallet when we went out and laugh, saying, just put it on your card, I'll Venmo you." Sometimes she did, sometimes she didn't. Sometimes I reminded her and she'd respond with a crying emoji and a paragraph about how hard things had been lately, and suddenly I'd feel like a bill collector for asking for $38.12. Then it became bigger things, bridesmaid stresses for other people's weddings, a temporary loan for a lease deposit, a birthday weekend in Miami that somehow ended with me covering the Airbnb because Madison's card got flagged for fraud and she swore she'd pay me back after payday. There was always a reason, always a crisis, always a little emotional ribbon tied around the request so that if I hesitated, I felt cruel. And still, I stayed. partly because I loved her, partly because history is powerful, and partly because the truth is ugly. When someone has been using you for years, admitting it makes you feel stupid. So you keep helping because if you stop, you have to face what all those years really were. Then Madison met Tyler. Tyler Reynolds, 34, venture capital, white smile, navy polos, the kind of guy who said brother to bartenders and talked about real estate at brunch like he was giving TED Talks nobody asked for. I didn't dislike him at first. He was polished, ambitious, annoyingly confident, but not outwardly rude. More than anything, he worshipped Madison in that performative way some men do when they like having a woman who photographs well next to them. They got engaged after 11 months. Of course they did. It happened in Napa, on a private vineyard, with a drone videographer hiding behind olive trees and a champagne tower waiting in the background like the proposal had a production budget. Madison called me sobbing before she even posted it. "Oh my God, Emily," she screamed, "I'm a fiancé." And I screamed because that's what you do when your best friend gets engaged, even if part of you is already bracing for impact. That impact came 3 days later over dinner when she said casually, as if discussing brunch reservations, "I'm thinking Bali." I laughed. She didn't. "Wait," I said, "for the honeymoon?" She forgot her birthday. She'd say she'd been so overwhelmed, and I, of all people, understood her heart. If she needed a ride to the airport at 4 in the morning, it was because I was the only one she could trust. If she cried about a breakup and called me 3 nights in a row until 2 a.m., it was because we had that once-in-a-lifetime bond. And I believed her. I don't think people talk enough about how flattering it feels to be needed, especially if you're the dependable one, especially if you grew up being praised for being mature, helpful, selfless. You start to build your identity around being the one who shows up, the one who fixes it, the one who absorbs a little more, gives a little more, stretches a little further. And then, one day, you wake up and realize the people around you don't love you because you're you. They love how easy you make their lives. That realization didn't hit me all at once. It came in installments, like interest on debt. At first, it was small things. Madison would forget her wallet when we went out and laugh, saying, "Em, just put it on your card, I'll Venmo you." Sometimes she did, sometimes she didn't. Sometimes I reminded her and she'd respond with a crying emoji and a paragraph about how hard things had been lately, and suddenly I'd feel like a bill collector for asking for $38.12. Then it became bigger things, bridesmaids' dresses for other people's weddings, a temporary loan for a lease deposit, a birthday weekend in Miami that somehow ended with me covering the Airbnb because Madison's card got flagged for fraud and she swore she'd pay me back after payday. There was always a reason, always a crisis, always a little emotional ribbon tied around the request so that if I hesitated, I felt cruel. And still, I stayed. Partly because I loved her, partly because history is powerful, and partly because the truth is ugly. When someone has been using you for years, admitting it makes you feel stupid. So you keep helping because if you stop, you have to face what all those years really were. Then Madison met Tyler. Tyler Reynolds, 34, venture capital, white smile, navy polos, the kind of guy who said brother to bartenders and talked about real estate at brunch like he was giving TED Talks nobody asked for. I didn't dislike him at first. He was polished, ambitious, annoyingly confident, but not outwardly rude. More than anything, he worshipped Madison in that performative way some men do when they like having a woman who photographs well next to them. They got engaged after 11 months. Of course they did. It happened in Napa, on a private vineyard, with a drone videographer hiding behind olive trees and a champagne tower waiting in the background like the proposal had a production budget. Madison called me sobbing before she even posted it. "Oh my God, Emily," she screamed, "I'm a fiancé." And I screamed because that's what you do when your best friend gets engaged, even if part of you is already bracing for impact. That impact came 3 days later over dinner when she said casually, as if discussing brunch reservations, "I'm thinking Bali." I laughed. She didn't. "Wait," I said, "for the honeymoon?"
For the wedding.
She grinned like she expected me to gasp. And I did, but not for the reason she wanted. Bali? I repeated. Like Indonesia Bali? Yes, she said. Clifftop resort, jungle views, floating candles, private villas, white orchids everywhere. It's going to be unreal. Tyler nodded like an investor approving a pitch deck. We want an experience, not just a wedding. I remember stirring my drink and thinking, experience for whom? Because destination weddings are never just weddings. They're logistics, money, flights, passports, time off work, group dynamics, coordinated outfits, emotional theater under tropical humidity. And Madison loved theater. That night, she reached across the table, grabbed my wrist, and said, "You're obviously my maid of honor." Not will you be, not if you're willing, just obviously. And because I was me, because we were us, because I still believe that being chosen meant being cherished, I smiled and said yes. The next 6 months were like getting trapped inside someone else's Pinterest board while your bank account slowly hemorrhaged. Madison didn't just want a wedding. She wanted a week-long visual empire. There was the welcome dinner, the beach brunch, the temple blessing, the rehearsal event, the sunset yacht party, the actual ceremony, and the post-wedding recovery pool day she insisted was non-negotiable for content. Content. That word should have warned me. Nothing about the wedding was about love. It was about images, about curation, about what people would say when they saw the drone shots and silk robes and imported orchids and champagne under lantern light. Tyler was just as bad. He kept referring to the wedding as a once-in-a-lifetime brand moment. A brand moment. I wish I were kidding. The first red flag that really mattered happened during a planning dinner at Madison's condo. She had spreadsheets printed, swatches taped onto pages, hotel renderings open on her iPad, and this intense, glittering look in her eye that meant she was about to ask for something insane in a voice soft enough to make refusing feel violent. "Okay," she said, "so I did some rough math." Never trust a sentence that starts like that. "We're trying to streamline international payments because the resort coordinator is being difficult and Tyler the counts are all tied up in quarterly distributions and my dad already covered the deposit, but there are these suite upgrades and vendor holds and flight blocks and Madison," I said, laughing nervously, "what are you asking me?" She gave me the smile, the one that always came right before I made a bad decision.
Would you be willing to put a few things on your card? Just temporarily, since your travel card has a better limit and points. A few things. Do you know what a few things turned out to be? Her bridal suite, her upgraded return flight, a transportation hold for 6 guests who never even thanked me, and a backup payment for the florist when she said her wire transfer was delayed. By the end of that month, just over $15,000 in wedding-related charges had hit my card. $15,000! Every time I questioned it, Madison had an answer ready. My dad's sending money next week. Tyler's bonus clears Friday. The planner says this is just temporary. You know I'd do it for you. That last one always landed hardest because even when it was obviously not true, some part of me still wanted it to be. I wish I could say I was blindsided. I wasn't. My younger sister Rachel told me I was being used. My coworker Nina told me to stop mixing friendship with finance. Even my mom, who likes to see the best in people, said very carefully, "Honey, are you sure this friendship feels as mutual as it sounds?" But I defended Madison every time. "She's stressed. It's a complicated destination wedding. She's not usually like this." That was a lie. She was exactly like this. The scale was just bigger now. About 3 weeks before the wedding, Madison called me in hysterics because one of her bridesmaids, Chloe, dropped out. Not because of an emergency, because Chloe finally snapped. Apparently, Madison had told all the bridesmaids they needed to book hair and makeup through her chosen glam team, $900 each, and then demanded they all wear sunset-approved jewelry from a designer she liked. Chloe said she couldn't justify the expense. Madison said Chloe was sabotaging her wedding energy. Chloe said some words I fully support to this day and left the group chat. That should have been my sign to run. Instead, I did what I always did. I soothed, I managed, I patched the leak. I spent 2 hours on FaceTime with Madison while she cried about betrayal and loyalty and how nobody shows up for women anymore. She said she felt abandoned. That word stuck with me because it was always the word she used when someone finally set a boundary. If you disappointed Madison, you didn't disagree with her, you abandoned her. A week before the trip, Madison invited me to her condo for a maid of honor gratitude night. I actually thought she was going to thank me. I even bought wine on the way over. When I got there, she had candles lit, a charcuterie board on the counter, and 6 garment bags hanging from the dining room
I have a
curtain rod.
surprise, she said. The surprise was labor. She wanted me to help steam outfits, assemble welcome bags, alphabetize guest itineraries, and hand-tie ribbons around tiny jars of local honey she was somehow bringing to Bali because details matter. We worked until almost 1 in the morning. At 12:43 a.m., as I was sealing the last welcome envelope, she looked up from the couch and said, "By the way, the bridal suite is gorgeous. Thank you again for fronting that. You have no idea how much that saved me." Saved her. I stared at her. She said it the way someone thanks you for grabbing coffee, not for swallowing 15 grand and hoping it wouldn't wreck your year. I said, carefully, "Do you know when you'll be able to pay me back?" Her whole face shifted, just slightly, but enough. Enough for me to recognize the old pattern. She sighed, leaned back, and said, "Emily, can we not do this right now? I'm in such a sensitive place." Such a sensitive place. Not, "Yes, here's the plan." Not, "I know and I appreciate you." Just a guilt bomb in a silk robe. Then she added, "It kind of hurts that you'd bring up money when I'm trying to celebrate this season with you." That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a thin, clean fracture. Because I realized then that no amount of helping would ever transform into gratitude. To Madison, help was rent. It was the price of proximity, and I had been paying it for years. I should have backed out, I know that. But there's a particular kind of exhaustion that doesn't make you leave, it makes you go numb. And numb people still get on planes. So I got on the plane. The resort in Bali was absurdly beautiful. That almost made it worse. If I'm being honest, there was a moment the first evening when I thought maybe I'd been wrong about everything. The ocean looked like hammered glass under the sunset. The air smelled like frangipani and salt. Stone pathways curled through gardens lit by lanterns. Every villa looked like a luxury ad had come to life. For one stupid hour, I thought maybe all the stress had just gotten to Madison. Maybe once we were actually there, she'd soften. Maybe she'd remember I was her best friend, not her unpaid assistant with a passport. Then check-in happened. Because the reservation for Madison and Tyler's presidential oceanfront suite was on my card, there was an issue at the desk about the incidental authorization amount. The receptionist was polite, professional, and trying to confirm which card should remain attached to the room for incidentals and upgrades. Before I could speak, Madison smiled sweetly and said, "Emily's taking care of it. She's my maid of honor." Like that explained everything.
like I was a corporate account with a pulse. I turned to her and said quietly, "No, I'm not covering incidentals too." Her smile stayed frozen, but her nails dug into my arm. "Can you not do this here?" And there it was again. Not "can we solve this?" Not "thank you for everything." Just "don't embarrass me in public." Eventually, Tyler put his card down, but he did it with the dramatic flair of a man donating a kidney. Madison didn't speak to me for almost an hour after that. Later that night, she acted normal again, because that was her gift. She could punish you in private and charm you in public so effectively that you'd start wondering if the problem was your memory. The next few days were a blur of demands. I was up before sunrise every morning, fielding checks from vendors because the planner kept disappearing. I fixed a transportation mix-up with the hairstylists. I tracked down Tyler's missing cufflinks. I found Madison's custom vow book after she left it by the pool bar. I calmed down her mother when the rehearsal seating chart changed. I helped one groomsman who got food poisoning. I basically became a concierge in formal wear. And through all of it, Madison kept finding new ways to make me smaller. Not in obvious movie villain ways, in polished, plausible ways. "Emily, can you stand to the side while we get this family shot? Emily, can you mind taking behind-the-scenes phone footage? Emily, I think your energy is reading stressed. Can you reset? Emily, can you handle this? You're just so good at support." Support. That word again. Always support. Never center. Never friend. The other bridesmaids noticed too. There were only two left by then. Savannah, who had known Madison for maybe 2 years and was too image conscious to ever disagree with her, and Lauren, Tyler's cousin, who looked permanently uncomfortable and drank sparkling water like it was medicine. One afternoon by the pool, Lauren sat next to me and said softly, "You know she talks to you differently than everyone else, right?" I looked at her. She stared straight ahead and added, "Like she expects you to absorb impact." That sentence lodged in my chest, because that was exactly it. Madison didn't just lean on me, she threw herself at me emotionally and trusted I'd cushion the fall. The day of the wedding started at 5:30 in the morning. I remember because I had slept maybe 3 hours and my phone already had 11 unread texts from Madison by the time my alarm went off. I had a schedule in one hand, a curling iron in the other, and enough adrenaline in my body to tranquilize a horse. Hair and makeup started at 7, breakfast trays arrived late, Tyler's vows got left in another villa, the florist switched to arrangements. Madison hated her first lip color, then her second, then the lighting, then the humidity. By 10 a.m., everybody in the bridal suite was speaking in that careful tone people use around a bomb squad situation. And still, I kept it together, because that's what I did. I fixed, I smoothed, I carried. Around noon, Madison asked where my dress was. I told her it was pressed and hanging in my room, and I'd be changing after I finished confirming the ceremony seating. She frowned. "Did you bring the right one?" That question might sound harmless, but with Madison there was always a knife hidden inside the silk. "Yes," I said, "the dusty blue one you approved." She looked at Savannah. Savannah looked at the makeup artist. The makeup artist suddenly became very interested in her brushes. And then Madison said, "Dusty blue is broad, Emily." "Broad?" I blinked. "It's the one from the link you sent." She tilted her head. "The updated link?" There had been no updated link. Or if there was, it was buried somewhere in the avalanche of obsessive messages she sent at 2 in the morning. "I bought the dress you told me to buy," I said. Her voice got quieter, which meant more dangerous. "Well, I really hope it photographs correctly." I felt heat climb my neck. "Madison, what does that mean?" She smiled for the room. It means don't make today about you. I wish I could tell you I walked out right then, but humiliation is confusing when it arrives dressed like etiquette. I went to my room, put on the dress, and stared at myself in the mirror. It was blue, a soft slate dusty blue, elegant, simple, exactly the kind of dress any sane person would have called appropriate. But when I got back to the suite, Madison turned, saw me, and her face hardened like I had shown up in neon. "Oh my God!" The room went still. "What?" I asked. "That's not the right shade." I actually laughed once because it was so absurd. "Yes, it is." "No, it isn't. It's pulling gray on camera." "Madison, didn't I say powder muted blue, not silver blue?" "Nobody says silver blue. I literally sent references. You sent 57 pictures of flowers and table linens." Her eyes flashed, and in front of everybody, the makeup artist, Savannah, Lauren, her mother, 2 photographers, and a woman from the resort carrying orchids, Madison looked at me like I was something sticky on the bottom of her shoe and said, "You always do this." That sentence hit harder than if she'd screamed, because it was nonsense, but it was polished nonsense, a preloaded accusation, a narrative she could slip on me anytime she needed a villain. I stared at her. Do what? You need a problem. Every big moment, every celebration, somehow there's always a complication around you. I could feel everyone pretending not to listen. I said very carefully, "I spent months helping you pull this off." And then she gave me the line I will never forget for as long as I live. "Helping doesn't mean you get attention." It felt like someone opened a trapdoor under me, because there it was, the truth. Raw, unedited, no soft packaging. That was what she thought of me. A utility, a function, a background feature getting too bright. I said, "You're being unbelievable." And Madison, with that tight, terrifying smile, stepped closer and lowered her voice enough to sound controlled, loud enough for everyone to hear. "If you can't respect the aesthetic, then stay in the back of the photos. Better yet, maybe don't stand with us at all." Silence. Pure, awful silence. No one defended me. No one said she was being ridiculous. Her mother looked down. Savannah pretended to adjust her earring. The photographers suddenly became invisible men with cameras. And I stood there, in a dress she approved, after spending $15,000 I didn't have lying around, after months of unpaid labor, after swallowing insult after insult, and understood in one brutal flash that Madison had never mistaken me for family. She had mistaken me for staff. I wish I could say I delivered some perfect movie speech right then. I didn't. Humiliation doesn't make you eloquent. It makes you cold. I just looked at her and said, "Got it." Then I turned and walked out. She called after me once, not because she felt bad, but because she hadn't finished controlling the scene. "Emily, don't be dramatic." That was the last thing she yelled before the ceremony. Don't be dramatic. At her destination wedding in Bali, after exiling her maid of honor over color theory. I went back to my room, shut the door, and stood there shaking. Not crying. Not yet. Just shaking. There's a point in some betrayals where your body knows before your brain catches up. My hands were trembling so hard I couldn't unzip the dress. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor. And all at once, it replayed. The Venmo excuses, the forgotten wallet, the trips, the deposits, the late-night guilt spirals, the way she thanked me only when she needed more, the way everyone around us quietly accepted that I would carry whatever she dropped because I'd taught them that I would. That realization was the worst part, not just that Madison used me, that I had participated in the system by rewarding it. I had spent years translating disrespect into stress, selfishness into need, entitlement into affection. And sitting there in that hotel room, still in the wrong shade of blue, I realized something
If I
else.
left quietly, she would survive it beautifully. She would tell everyone I was unstable, jealous, overwhelmed. She'd pose for perfect sunset pictures and later explain that her maid of honor had a hard time emotionally, and everybody would nod because polished women are believed more easily than loyal ones. No, no, I thought, not this time. I didn't go to the ceremony. Instead, I showered, changed into linen pants and a white top, tied my hair back, and walked to the resort cafe overlooking the cliffs. I ordered iced coffee, then another. And for the first time in years, I stopped trying to manage Madison's consequences. I just sat there and watched the ocean. Do you know how strange peace feels when you've been performing service for too long? It feels illegal. My phone buzzed for hours. At first, it was texts from Madison. "Where are you? Are you serious right now? Get here now. You are humiliating me." Then voice notes, then missed calls, then messages from Savannah. "Madison is really upset. Can you please come for photos? Let's not make this bigger." Then Filer, "Fix this, fix this." Imagine telling the unpaid woman who funded half your fantasy wedding to fix this. I put my phone face down and finished my coffee. By sunset, the ceremony had happened without me. I know because guests started filtering into the reception area in formal wear and flower crowns, all flushed from champagne and cliffside photos. I stayed away. I had dinner by myself at the smaller restaurant near the lower villas, and for the first time, the trip actually felt beautiful. Nobody needed anything from me. Nobody was snapping instructions in my face. Nobody was assigning me emotional cleanup. I was halfway through grilled fish and rice when Lauren found me. She still had her bridesmaid makeup on, but she'd kicked off her heels and was carrying them in one hand. "Mind if I sit?" she asked. I shrugged. Free country. She sat, exhaled, and said, "For what it's worth, she was awful." I let out a laugh I didn't mean to. Lauren told me the whole reception had an undercurrent of tension because Madison couldn't stop talking about me. Apparently, she kept saying things like, "Some people can't handle when the spotlight isn't on them," which is fascinating considering I literally left. Then came the part that changed everything. Lauren said, "Also, I didn't know this, but people were talking about the money." I looked up. "What money?" She hesitated. "Madison told a few people you insisted on paying for some of the upgrades because you wanted to make the wedding feel premium." I just stared at her. My ears started ringing. "What?" Lauren winced. "I don't think Tyler even knows the whole amount. I overheard one of his friends congratulate her on having a maid of honor sponsor the luxury tier." Sponsor? Luxury tier? My stomach dropped like an elevator. Because of course she'd done that. Of course she turned my financial panic into her social cachet. It wasn't enough to use me. She had to package the usage as devotion. I asked Lauren exactly who had heard that. She named names. One of Tyler's friends, Tyler's sister, Madison's aunt, maybe more. Something in me went from cracked to finished. Not sad, not hysterical. Done. After Lauren left, I walked back to my room slowly under the lanterns.
And somewhere between the koi pond and the row of villas facing the jungle, I made a decision. I was no longer trying to save the friendship. I was settling my accounts. Now, before I continue, let me say this. I did not strand Madison in a foreign country with no resources and laugh into the moonlight like some movie villain. I'm petty, not criminal. But the return flight, the business class ticket upgrade, the one attached to the travel package purchased through my account because Madison just needed me to float it for a few days, that was mine to cancel. And once I opened the booking details and confirmed exactly what was still under my payment authority, I realized something beautiful. The ticket was refundable to original form of payment until check-in, and check-in for the return trip had not opened yet. I slept on it. That's the mature part nobody tells when they summarize revenge stories. I slept on it. And in the morning, Madison made my choice for me. At 8:12 a.m., I got a message from her that read, "I hope your tantrum was worth it. Don't bother coming to brunch. You've done enough damage." Then another, "Also, I'll need you to settle the final vendor overage before checkout since your card is already attached to several holds. We can reconcile after we get back." Reconcile. After we get back. I actually laughed out loud in my room, because there it was again, the absolute delusional assumption that after being publicly humiliated and removed from wedding photos like a contagious stain, I would still function as her financial bridge until she got home.
No apology, no shame, just logistics. So I called the airline. I was calm, very calm. I explained that I needed to cancel one passenger segment on a reservation booked through my account. I verified the payment information, answered security questions, confirmed the fare conditions, and voided the upgraded return booking tied to Madison Blake. The agent asked if I wanted the travel credit back to the original traveler or the refund to original payment method where applicable. I took the refund and any remaining credit I was legally entitled to through my account. Then I called the hotel desk and removed my card from every room and incidental hold except my own. Then I went further. I pulled every receipt, every booking confirmation, every screenshot of Madison asking me to cover charges, every "I'll pay you back," every email showing my card had funded parts of this circus. I organized it all into one folder, because if there is one thing I do better than grieving, it's documentation. By noon, Madison still didn't know. I went down to the pool with a paperback and let the tropical sun burn the last of my guilt off. Around 3, my phone exploded. First Madison, then Tyler again, then Savannah, then an unknown number that turned out to be the resort front desk. I answered Madison on the 4th call. She didn't say hello. "What did you do?" You could hear the lobby echo behind her, rolling suitcases, hard shoes on stone tile, a baby crying somewhere, chaos. I leaned back in my lounge chair and said, "You'll need to be more specific." "My flight, my return flight is gone." I let half a second pass. "Yes." There was this stunned silence, like her mind had hit a wall it didn't know existed. Then, "You psycho!" "No," I said, "your former maid of honor." Tyler's voice came on in the background. "Put it on speaker." She did. He barked, "Emily, reinstate the ticket right now." That tone, that entitled male certainty that volume equals authority. I almost smiled. "No." "Do you understand how insane this is?" he snapped. "Do you understand how invoices work?" I asked. Madison made this sound, half scream, half gasp. "You can't just cancel my flight because you're mad." "I didn't cancel your flight because I'm mad," I said. "I canceled the flight I paid for after you told me to stay out of your wedding photos and then tried to use my card for more charges." "That was stress," she yelled. "It was my wedding." "Stress doesn't turn you into a liar, Madison. It just reveals what's already there." She started crying then, loud and wet and furious, the kind of crying she did when she needed the room to make her the victim fastest.
"You've ruined everything," she said. "No," I told her, "I funded everything. Big difference." Tyler cut in. "We will reimburse you." I laughed. That really set them off. "After Bali?" I asked. "After Atlanta? After your next excuse?" "No, you can book her a new flight yourselves." Madison hissed. "You are jealous. That's what this is. You've always been jealous." It's amazing how often selfish people reach for jealousy when accountability shows up. I said, "Madison, if I were jealous, I would have let you put the florist on a debit card that declines internationally." Silence. Then I added, "Good luck getting home." And I hung up. Now, if the story ended there, it would already be satisfying, but life loves an encore. Because within an hour, Madison came storming through the lobby looking for me. I wasn't hard to find. I was in the open-air lounge by the entrance, drinking iced tea and reading my book like I didn't have a fresh revenge glow on my face. She was still beautiful, unfortunately. Even furious, Madison looked expensive. Hair glossy, sunglasses enormous, white resort set, rage vibrating through every step. Tyler was behind her, jaw tight, trying to keep this from becoming a public spectacle, which of course meant it was absolutely going to become a public spectacle. Madison marched up to me and said, "Fix it." No hello, no apology, just fix it. I closed my book. No. She crouched down closer to me, smile stretched thin for the people watching nearby. "Emily, enough. You made your point." "That's funny," I said. "Yesterday you said helping doesn't mean I get attention. Today you flew across the lobby to give me some." Her face changed. Not the camera face, the real one. Sharp, mean, cornered. "You are out of your mind. And you are out of my card privileges." Tyler stepped in. "This has gone too far." I looked at him. "With respect, Tyler, it went too far at $15,000 and public humiliation." He actually had the nerve to say, "You offered." That one almost took my breath away. That's how these people do it, by the way. They revise history in real time. If you agree under pressure, under manipulation, under a lifetime of guilt conditioning, they call it generosity. They call it willingness. They call it proof that you can't be upset later because technically nobody held a gun to your head. I stood up then, not dramatically, just enough to meet them eye to eye. "I have every receipt," I said, "every message, every charge, every promise to pay me back. So if either of you wants to keep doing this in public, let's do it all the way." That landed, because Tyler, unlike Madison, actually understood risk. He glanced around the lobby. A few guests were already pretending not to watch. 2 hotel staff members had perfected that hospitality expression that says this is absolutely their business, but they're being paid to act like it isn't. Madison saw him hesitate and got even madder. She jabbed a finger toward me. "You don't get to threaten me after what you did." I leaned in slightly and said the quietest, coldest thing I've ever said in my life. "You stopped being my friend long before I stopped paying for your life." Her mouth fell open. Tyler put a hand on her arm. "Madison." She yanked away from him. "No, she's doing this because she can't stand one day not being the center." "Madison," I said, cutting her off, "you made me fund your suite, your upgrade, your wedding logistics, and then told me to stand in the back because my dress photographed too gray. You don't get to rewrite this." And then the pièce de résistance. Her mother, Patricia, who had silently floated through the week like a woman trying not to upset a cobra, appeared beside us and said, very softly, "She's right." Everybody froze. Madison turned to her mother. "Mom, do not start." But Patricia didn't stop. She looked tired, more than tired, the way people look when denial has finally exceeded its budget. "You owe Emily an apology," she said, "and money." I swear to you, if the lobby had a soundtrack, it would have screeched to a halt. Madison stared at her mother like she'd been slapped. Tyler stepped back. I did too, internally, because I hadn't expected backup, not from anyone.
Patricia continued. I asked you twice whether Emily had been reimbursed, and you told me it was handled. Madison's whole body went rigid. Why are you doing this here? Patricia's eyes flicked toward me, then back to her daughter. Because she has done more for you than anyone in this building. I won't lie, that almost broke me. Not because it fixed anything, but because after years of being made to feel invisible, being plainly seen felt like somebody opening a window in a locked room. Madison recovered quickly because people like her usually do. She scoffed, threw up her hands, and said, Fine, fine, everybody pile on. Amazing, this is amazing. Then she turned to me and spat. You know what? Keep the money. I never want to see you again. I said, Perfect, and I meant it. That should have been the clean ending, but there was still one more layer. Later that evening, Patricia came to my room alone. She looked embarrassed, which told me more about the family system than any wedding speech ever could. She apologized for Madison, not in that empty social way people apologize for other adults, in a real way, like someone who had spent years cleaning emotional spills behind a daughter nobody ever forced to mop her own mess. Then she handed me an envelope. Inside was a cashier's check, not for the full amount, but for $10,000. I just stared at it. Patricia said quietly, This is from me and her father. We'll sort out the rest with her. I asked why. She laughed once, but there was no humor in it. Because this isn't the first bridge she's burned. It's the most expensive. That line told me everything. Madison had done this before. Maybe not with the same scale, maybe not with the same dollar amount, but the pattern was old. I wasn't the exception. I was the latest. Patricia asked if I was leaving Bali early. I said no. And that turned out to be the best decision I made. Because once I stopped orbiting Madison, the island became mine. For 3 days, I did everything she would have hated because none of it centered her. I slept in. I got a massage overlooking the jungle. I took a private cooking class in Ubud. I rode in a car with a local guide who showed me temples and rice terraces and small artisan shops far away from curated resort nonsense. I ate satay from a roadside place our concierge recommended. I sat by a pool without answering anybody's texts. I watched the sunset without taking a single picture for someone else's approval. And I started remembering who I was outside of being useful. That may sound small to some people, but if you've spent years being cast in the role of helper, rediscovering yourself feels revolutionary. By the time I flew back to Atlanta, I had a plan. I sent Madison one email. Not emotional, not dramatic, not vindictive, just facts. Attached were the receipts and a balance sheet showing exactly what remained unpaid after her parents' partial reimbursement and the refunded flight amount. I gave her 14 days to settle the rest before I pursued formal recovery options. She did not respond. Tyler did. He sent a stiff, sterile message accusing me of creating unnecessary conflict during what should have been a sacred season. Sacred season? That phrase alone deserved its own invoice. But attached to his email was proof of payment for the remaining balance. No apology, no acknowledgement, just money. Honestly, that was enough. A week later, Madison posted her wedding video. Yes, I watched it. Of course I watched it. I'm only human. It was gorgeous, cinematic, golden light, slow motion veil, cliffside vows, champagne spray, the whole expensive fantasy. And I wasn't in it. Not once. No maid of honor speech, no laughing getting ready montage, no side-by-side friendship clip. 12 years, and I had been edited out like a production inconvenience. I stared at that video for a long time, and weirdly, that was the moment I stopped grieving her. Because the edit was honest. For the first time, the public version matched the private truth. I had never really been in Madison's story. I had been behind the camera, holding the charger, carrying the bag, fixing the timeline. Useful, but not beloved. So I let myself be gone.
A month later, I heard through mutual friends that Madison was telling people I had a breakdown in Bali and became financially erratic. Financially erratic? That's a beautiful phrase for stopped letting me treat her like an ATM. But by then, I didn't need to defend myself. Because something changes when you finally stop trying to preserve a false version of a relationship. You stop auditioning for fairness. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop carrying the burden of being well interpreted by those who benefited from your silence. And, maybe most importantly, you stop mistaking access for intimacy. That wedding cost me more than money. It cost me an identity I had been wearing for years. The good friend, the easy friend, the reliable one, the woman who can take a little more. Losing that identity hurt, but keeping it was destroying me. So maybe Madison did give me something in Bali after all.
Not the friendship I thought I had. Not closure wrapped in apology. Something better. An ending sharp enough that I could never lie to myself about it again. These days, when people ask what happened between us, I don't tell the whole dramatic version unless they've earned it. Usually, I just say, we grew apart around the time I stopped financing her lifestyle. That tends to cover it. As for me, I paid off the last little chunk that the reimbursements didn't cover with my year-end bonus and a little rage-fueled budgeting. I got promoted 6 months later. I started saying no without a paragraph after it. I went to therapy. Highly recommend. I learned that loyalty without reciprocity is self-abandonment in a pretty outset. I learned that some people call you family when what they really mean is convenient. And I learned that if someone only values you when you're sacrificing, they don't miss you when you leave. They miss your service. The wildest part? About 8 months after the wedding, Madison texted me. Just one line. No hello, no apology, no shame. She wrote, "I'm coming to Atlanta next month. Want to get coffee and clear the air?" I looked at that message for a full minute. Then I laughed so hard I had to set my phone down. Clear the air. Like the air had simply gotten confused. Like there wasn't a ledger, a lobby, a wedding, a public humiliation, and a canceled international flight sitting between us. I did respond, though. I'm proud of what I said, because it was simple. And simple is hard when you've spent your life over-explaining your boundaries to people who plan to cross them anyway. I wrote, "There's no air to clear. You were comfortable using me, and I was too loyal to stop you. We both learned something. Take care." Then I blocked her, and that was it. No dramatic reunion, no last scream, no redemption arc. Just a door closing. Solid. Final. Quiet. Honestly, that kind of ending doesn't look glamorous on social media. There's no violin swell, no slow motion walk away. Just peace. Just your nervous system finally realizing it doesn't have to brace anymore. If you're listening to this and you've ever had a friend who only loves you in service mode, let me tell you what I wish someone had told me years earlier. If they only call when they need something, that's not closeness. If your boundaries offend them, that's not intimacy. If your role in their life is to fund, fix, absorb, arrange, excuse, and shrink, that is not friendship. That is consumption. And people who consume you will call you cruel the first time you stop offering yourself as a meal. Let them. Because sometimes the only way to find out whether someone loves you or just benefits from you is to disappoint them. Madison wanted me in the back of the pictures. Fine. But here's what she never understood. People in the background see everything. And when the woman holding the whole fantasy together finally steps out of frame, sometimes the whole beautiful lie starts collapsing under its own weight. So yes, my best friend made me pay $15,000 for her destination wedding. Yes, she kicked me out over the wrong shade of blue. And yes, I canceled her flight home. Do I regret it? No, I regret the years before it, the years I made excuses for behavior that should have ended the friendship long before Bali, the years I confused being needed with being loved. But the flight? No, that was just the first time the consequences caught up to the person who earned them. And if Madison ever watches this, I hope she remembers one thing. I was never jealous. I was exhausted. There's a difference. And exhausted women stop carrying people. Sometimes all at once, sometimes in hotel lobbies, sometimes with one phone call.